We just got some bad news on the Trey Hendrickson front when it comes to the Washington Commanders. At the top of today's show, we'll be breaking down what that news is and what it means for Hendrickson's chances of becoming a Washington Commander this year. And then, we're going to have a little bit of bad news to kick off today's show, but then we'll get into some good news later in today's show. A very positive injury update on right guard Sam Cosmi, so make sure you guys stick around to the end of today's show to see the positive news on the starting right guard. But before we get into today's content, make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already to get daily and free updates on the Burgundy and Gold right here on the channel. We put out videos every single day, so if you guys want your daily update of Commanders news and rumors, click that subscribe button and join the Commanders Report family today. So some bad news for the Washington Commanders here as ESPN's Jeremy Fowler reported on Sunday that Trey Hendrickson, the star edge rusher for the Cincinnati Bengals, has now reopened negotiations with the Bengals organization, and apparently it's moving in a very positive direction towards Hendrickson getting a new deal with the Cincinnati Bengals. This was the report from Jeremy Fowler yesterday, saying the Bengals and All-Pro defensive end Trey Hendrickson have resumed contract talks. Now, of course, before Hendrickson and the organization were pretty much at a stalemate where they weren't even talking with each other about a potential contract extension. The Bengals have kind of said we've offered what we are willing to offer to Trey. He can either take it or not play this year. And Hendrickson is saying, listen, you guys promised me more money than this if I kept up my production. And not only did I keep up my production, but I led the league in sacks last year. So it's time for you guys to pay up. And neither side has been willing to budge. But this is a positive turn that is bad news. If you are a Washington Commander fan that was hoping that Adam Peters, the Commanders GM, was going to be able to work a trade for Trey Hendrickson before the start of training camp this year. And it definitely seems at this point in time, guys, unfortunately, that Hendrickson and the Bengals are both wanting to get a deal done to keep Hendrickson in the jungle, which of course would mean that the Washington Commanders would need to find a different solution at the edge rusher position before we get to the start of the 2025 NFL season. Now, I will say it's not impossible that the Commanders could pull off a trade for Trey Hendrickson. Who knows? These newfound negotiations between Trey Hendrickson and the Bengals organization could once again go awry, and the Bengals might eventually cave and trade Trey Hendrickson before the start of the season. But with this positive turn in this saga for Hendrickson, I think that it's looking less and less likely that Trey is going to be wearing burgundy and gold week 1 of the 2025 NFL campaign. But my question when it comes to this whole topic is, how long will Adam Peters be willing to wait to sign an edge rusher or trade for an edge rusher here? How long is he going to be willing to wait on the Trey Hendrickson stuff before he ends up bringing in somebody else? Because right now, it's not necessarily the greatest edge rusher situation. If you've been following the team this offseason, you understand this. Right now, Dorrance Armstrong, who in my opinion at best is a number 2 edge rusher, is currently your number 1 guy. And then you're going to have a bunch of rotating guys as it's currently constructed. Cleveland Ferrell, Dietrich Wise, even a little bit of Javon Kinlaw is what they've been saying as kind of like a ginormous edge rusher is a possibility. Then Jacob Martin is another specialty edge rusher that they brought in this offseason. But there are some good free agency options out there where you still got Von Miller, who is up there in age. He's 36, but he did put up an 85.5 PFF grade last year, so he can still play and get after quarterbacks, especially in a rotational role. Za'Darius Smith had a very productive season with the Detroit Lions last year after he was traded. Jadeveon Clowney has had some very productive seasons recently, even though both of those guys are 32 years old. Speaking of 32-year-olds, Matthew Judon coming off a down season with the Atlanta Falcons, but the year previous, he had a really good season with the Patriots. And then Preston Smith had a good season last year with the Green Bay Packers and Pittsburgh Steelers at his age 31 season. So there's still some good options out there for the Washington Commanders to consider if they don't get Trey Hendrickson. But my guess here, guys, is that Hendrickson is so far in a way the best option here that the Commanders are going to be willing to wait this out, especially because there's still a number of good edge rusher potential targets in free agency to consider. We just put up 5 on the screen, and that's just the top 5 that are currently available on the market. So I think the Commanders are going to be willing to be patient here. They're going to see how these negotiations go with Trey Hendrickson and the Bengals, and if they come to a contract extension, I would expect the Commanders to sign another edge rusher fairly soon after that. But until a Hendrickson deal is done, I think Adam Peters and the Commanders are going to hold and wait. Now, predict it for me down there in the comment section. Will the Commanders sign or trade for an edge rusher before the start of the season? And if you think they do, who do you think they end up bringing in? Do you still believe a Trey Hendrickson deal is going to get done? Do you think they bring in a guy like Von Miller? Is it somebody else? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section for today's pinned question. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by answering today's pinned question. And now, while that ad break just played, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a word here from our friends at Fanatics. You guys can go to chatsports.com/Daniels to pick up your Jadon Daniels Commanders jersey today. And this is a jersey, guys, that you can have in your collection for probably the rest of your life. Knock on wood, but I think Jadon Daniels is going to be a legend when it comes to Washington Commanders football. So if you guys want to get this jersey, cheer on JD, cheer on the Commanders this year with that number 5 on your body. You can go to chatsports.com/Daniels to pick up your jersey today. So now we move from some bad news to some good news here as ESPN's John Keim, the Commanders reporter for ESPN, says that Sam Cosmi's rehab, coming back off of that ACL tear he suffered last year, is going very well at this stage in the process. Now, it was very scary watching that divisional playoff game last year against the Lions and seeing Cosmi go down because he is such an important piece to this Commanders offensive line. He has been for a very long time. John Keim has this to say about his ongoing rehab. There's definite optimism about the pace of the recovery. What that means for the season is still a little bit early to say. There are still more markers along the way, but it's looking good for Sam Cosmi right now. Everything so far has been looking good. When you watch him do some agility work, he looks good. When you tear an ACL, a lot of the time it's the movement from side to side, but I think being a lineman helps him in this situation. You don't have to do maybe as much as a skill position guy does. On the other hand, you've got to rely on those knees and legs to get yourself some power, but so far, so good for Sam Cosmi. So listen, man, in my opinion, Washington can't get this guy back soon enough. He's an awesome player when he's on the field, and it will be interesting to see how he bounces back from that ACL tear, seeing if he still has the same power and same anchor as he had before the injury. But before the injury here, guys, his 4 seasons in the National Football League have been really, really good. He's been a top 31 offensive guard in football, which would rank him around in the top 15th percentile, somewhere in there, of NFL offensive guards. And his best season, 2023, he was a top 5 guard in all football, according to Pro Football Focus grading. He's been the most steady, offensive lineman on this offensive line for a long time, all right? So getting him back will be absolutely huge. And if the Commanders can have him fully healthy and ready to go, at least by the postseason this year, I think we expect the Commanders to be in the postseason. And if you can get him back in the lineup by then, I think that would be the best case scenario for the Washington Commanders. But because he got injured so late last year, it's going to take a little bit of time. I don't expect him to be ready to go by week 1, which means it's going to be a battle at right guard. Head coach Dan Quinn did confirm that Brandon Coleman is moving to left guard. He is your likely starter at left guard to start the season. So Andrew Wiley's played some guard in his career. He's played tackle over the last several seasons, but he hasn't really played all that well there. You just drafted Josh Connerly Jr. out of Oregon, who I expect to be this team's week 1 starter, so Wiley could be the favorite to be the starting right guard week 1. But Nick Allegretti is another guy that can play right guard, and now that his job at left guard has been taken away by Brandon Coleman, I expect Allegretti to push hard for that starting right guard job to start the season. Then Trent Scott had to come in and play guard when Cosmi went down last year, and in my opinion, Scott actually held up pretty nicely against playoff caliber defenses. So kudos to Scott for coming in. There's a reason why this team brought him back this year, and I think he'll be right in the thick of it in terms of that right guard competition. But I would say Andrew Wiley is probably the favorite right now, but pick your guy that you would want to see out there as this team's starting right guard with Sam Cosmi out for likely the start of the 2025 season. Type AW if you want to see Andrew Wiley, type NA for Nick Allegretti, or type TS if you want to see Trent Scott out there in week 1. That'll be it for today's edition of the Commanders Report by Chat Sports. Thank you guys so much for making it to the end of today's program. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, go raise some hail.